A ton of severe weather is coming, and I mean that in the most literal way possible. We're not talking about a couple of isolated thunderstorms popping up here and there. We're not talking about a marginal risk that fizzles out by sunset. We are talking about a multi-day, multi-region, severe weather outbreak that is going to keep rolling across the United States for the better part of the next week and a half. Damaging winds, large hail, tornadoes, and flooding rain are all on the table, and they are going to be impacting a lot of people across a lot of different areas all at the same time. So let us get right into the forecast because we have a ton to cover today, and I want to make sure everybody knows exactly what is coming their way. And I want to jump right into what is happening today because the severe weather threat is already in motion right now. We have two separate slight risks of severe weather in place across the country today, and both of them deserve your full attention. The first one is across the Central Plains, where a line of thunderstorms is going to be developing this afternoon and pushing eastward through the evening hours. The main concern with this setup today is going to be damaging wind gusts. I personally think there's a very real chance that some of these storms across Kansas and Nebraska produce wind gusts up to 75 to 80 millibars. That is not pocket change. That is the kind of wind that takes down trees, knocks out power lines, and sends outdoor furniture flying across your yard. So if you live anywhere from Wichita, Salina, Lincoln, or Omaha, make sure you are protecting any loose items outside and make sure you have multiple ways to receive weather alerts today. The second slight risk today is across the deep south, where another line of thunderstorms is going to be firing up this afternoon across the Tennessee Valley and pushing down into Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, Birmingham, Tupelo, and Atlanta. You guys are under the gun today. The main threat, once again, is going to be damaging winds, but I do think there is a chance that one of these storms in the Tennessee Valley produces a wind gust of 75 to 80 mph out of an isolated, significant severe storm. Hail threat. Today is mostly going to be pocket change sized for the majority of you, but just to the east of Denver there is a real possibility of tennis ball to baseball sized hail out of one or two discrete storms this afternoon. And the tornado threat today is low across the board. The only official tornado risk outline is in Nebraska, Kansas, Colorado, and Wyoming, but an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out anywhere in that giant severe weather area today. So make sure those weather alerts are on. Now let me talk about the timing of today's storms, because I think that is really important for people to understand. This morning we already have a complex of thunderstorms moving through Missouri and Illinois, and that is going to continue to gradually weaken through the late morning hours. But do not think we are in the clear after that, because we are absolutely not. By around 3 to 4 this afternoon, we are going to start watching for a new line of thunderstorms to develop near Cape Girardeau and Poplar Bluff, and potentially something firing up near Nashville as well. These storms are going to be pretty unpredictable in terms of their exact evolution, but if a solid line does get going, it is going to be significant, and it will be producing damaging winds and even a low-end tornado potential through the early to mid-afternoon. Then by 4 to 5 in the afternoon, we are going to see a large and organized line of thunderstorms develop right along the Mississippi River Valley, moving from north to south, and this is the one I am most concerned about for today. This line is going to be producing pockets of 60 to 75 mph wind gusts right along the Mississippi River corridor. After sunset, this line pushes through Tupelo, Columbus, and Birmingham with scattered, damaging wind gusts and some pocket change-sized hail. Tornado threat drops off as we get into the late evening, but stay weather aware until this thing clears your area completely. So far this year, the weather has been absolutely relentless. We have had violent tornado outbreaks tearing through communities across the plains and the south. We have had historic late-season blizzards burying the upper Midwest under feet of snow in the middle of May. We have had record-shattering heat domes baking the desert southwest with temperatures that belong in July, not March. We have had frost events wiping out cherry orchards and vineyards that were weeks ahead of schedule because the warmth came too early and the cold refused to leave. And I know a lot of you, myself included, have been sitting back wondering when this atmosphere is finally going to take a breath and give us all a break. Well, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but the answer to that question is not anytime soon. Because everything that has happened so far in 2026, as wild and as exhausting as it has actually been building towards something. The pattern that has been driving all of this extreme weather is not random. It is not just bad luck. It is part of a much larger atmospheric setup that is now reaching a critical threshold. And what comes next has the potential to be the single biggest and most consequential weather event of the entire year. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly what that means, why it is happening, and most importantly, what you can do to prepare for it. Before I get into what is coming, I want to make sure everyone understands the foundation of why our weather has been so extreme in the first place. Because once you understand the mechanism, everything else starts to make a lot more sense. The driver behind the chaos we have been experiencing is something called the jet stream, and specifically the way the jet stream has been behaving in a deeply amplified and volatile pattern throughout all of 2026. The jet stream is essentially the river of fast-moving air high up in the atmosphere that separates cold polar air from warm tropical air and steers our weather systems from west to east across the country. In a normal year, the jet stream runs in a relatively smooth and progressive pattern that keeps weather systems moving through fairly quickly without getting stuck in one place for too long. But when the jet stream becomes highly amplified, when it starts developing these enormous dips and ridges that dig way further north and south than normal, that is when you get the extreme events. Deep troughs dragging Arctic air all the way down into Texas in February, massive ridges pumping desert heat into the Pacific Northwest in June, powerful blocking patterns that lock a storm system in place over one region for days at a time and just keep hammering it. That amplified jet stream pattern is what we have been living through in 2026, and the reason it has been so persistent and so extreme comes down to something much bigger that is happening in the ocean right now. I know some of you are probably already thinking about this because we have been talking around it for months, but it is now time to address it directly. The sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean have been running significantly above normal for an extended period, and the latest data from the Climate Prediction Center has crossed a threshold that changes the entire seasonal forecast picture for the rest of 2026 and into 2027. We are now in the early stages of what is shaping up to be one of the most powerful El Niño events in recent decades, and some of the atmospheric scientists who spend their entire careers tracking this stuff are using a word to describe what is developing that they do not use very often. They are calling it a super El Niño. And before I explain what that means, I want to give you the basic framework for understanding what El Niño actually is, because I think a lot of people have heard the term thrown around without ever really understanding what it does or why it matters for the weather in their specific backyard. Every few years, the tropical Pacific Ocean goes through a natural cycle of warming and cooling that has enormous ripple effects on weather patterns all over the world. We call the cool phase La Nina and the warm phase El Niño. And together, the cycle is called the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO for short. For the past 3 years, we have been locked in an unusually persistent La Nina, which is actually pretty rare, because a typical La Nina only lasts about 9 to 12 months. 3 years of La Nina is long, and the atmosphere has been loaded like a spring under that pattern. Now here is the key to understanding why the shift to El Niño is such a big deal. Under normal conditions, the trade winds near the equator blow strongly from east to west across the Pacific. Those trade winds push warm surface water away from South America and allow cold water from deep beneath the ocean to rise up and keep the eastern Pacific relatively cool. That cold water suppresses thunderstorm development in the central Pacific and keeps the jet stream in a certain configuration. But when the trade winds start to weaken, which is exactly what happens at the beginning of an El Niño, all of that warm water that was being pushed westward sloshes back toward South America and spreads across the central and eastern equatorial Pacific. You get an enormous pool of abnormally warm ocean water sitting in the middle of the biggest body of water on the entire planet. And that warm water starts fueling massive clusters of intense thunderstorms right in the middle of the Pacific, where they would not normally exist. Those thunderstorms generate so much heat and so much energy that they literally bend and redirect the jet stream. And when the jet stream shifts, everything downstream shifts with it. Your weather, my weather, the weather across every region of the United States, all of it gets reorganized based on what is happening in that patch of ocean thousands of miles away. That is how powerful this thing is, and that is why a super El Niño developing right now in the summer and fall of 2026 is something every single person watching this needs to understand. A massive storm system is coming to the United States over the next couple of days, and this thing just took a significant turn in the last several hours because the models that came in this morning have dramatically shifted the forecast in a way that affects millions of people who were not even in the conversation yesterday. We are talking about a storm that is going to bring a long list of serious problems all at once, including a significant, severe weather threat with damaging winds, very large hail, and tornadoes, a major blizzard for the Central Plains and Upper Midwest, an extremely critical fire weather situation across the southern plains, and a widespread corridor of 40 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts stretching from the Rockies all the way back through the Ohio Valley and into the East Coast. And the reason this storm just took a big turn is because the latest data is now showing the system deepening to somewhere around 979 to 981 millibars at its peak intensity, which would make it one of the strongest storm systems ever recorded in the month of May when it comes to barometric pressure. This is not a normal storm. This is an exceptionally powerful and dangerous system. And in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about it in extreme detail. We have got a lot of ground to cover, so let us get right into it. Let us start with what is happening right now, because the storm is already on the move and the first impacts are already beginning to show up. The system is currently sitting just west of the Rockies, and it is pulling an enormous amount of moisture simultaneously out of the Pacific and up from the Gulf of Mexico, and that dual moisture feed is going to fuel an extraordinarily active, severe weather stretch that is going to roll from tonight all the way through Wednesday. 3 consecutive days of significant severe weather potential from one storm system. That alone tells you how powerful and how long track this setup is going to be. And the Storm Prediction Center has already acknowledged the scope of this, with risk areas outlined from the Central Plains all the way back into Florida and up the East Coast. We have a lot of severe weather to break down, so let us go through it day by day, starting with tonight. Tonight, the primary focus for severe weather is going to be across central and southern Oklahoma and into North Texas, where an enhanced risk of severe weather is now in place. The main concern tonight is going to be damaging winds, as we are anticipating a line of thunderstorms to upscale very quickly across both Oklahoma and Texas once initiation gets going. But here's the thing about tonight that I want to make very clear, because this is where the forecast just shifted. The tornado parameter values across western Oklahoma tonight are extraordinarily high. We are looking at values in the 8 and 9 range on the significant tornado parameter scale across western and central Oklahoma, right around the 10 to 11 in the evening window. Those are values that indicate an extremely favorable environment for tornadoes, if any discrete surface-based storms can get going before everything merges into a line. And here is what makes this tricky. If this storm system was even 6 hours faster in its progression, we would almost certainly be talking about a substantial tornado outbreak tonight. The timing is what is limiting the tornado potential and keeping this more focused on the wind threat. But if any storms manage to become surface-based and discrete along that frontal boundary in western Oklahoma before 10 or 11 tonight, I am not ruling out an isolated strong tornado. Storms are not expected to really fire off until about 10 to 11 Central Time tonight, which means that incredibly favorable tornado environment in western Oklahoma is largely going to go unused for the most dangerous discrete storm mode. However, once that line forms, it is going to move fast, and embedded tornadoes within the line are absolutely possible through midnight and beyond. Oklahoma City, you are looking at that line moving through somewhere around 1 to 2 in the morning. Further south down near Abilene and Wichita Falls, the cap holds until about 1 to 2 in the morning, and then storms fire along that boundary and push east toward the Dallas, Fort Worth metro by around 4 to 5 in the morning. This is a nocturnal, severe weather threat, and that means you absolutely must have multiple ways to receive alerts that will wake you up if you are asleep anywhere from western Oklahoma through North Texas tonight. We are planning on going live tonight, starting around 10 to 11, so make sure you are subscribed and have the bell icon clicked so you get notified when we go live.